Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we'll review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Bava Kamma, pages 87 through 93, Pei Zayin through Tzadi Gimel. 87. Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef, who was blind, said the following: Mereish Hava Amina, I used to think, Mandamar Lach Rabbi Yehuda, whoever tells me that the law follows Rabbi Yehuda, who had said that blind people are exempt from mitzvot, I'll make a big party for the rabbis. I'll sponsor a kiddush for all the people in the yeshiva. My time, why would I be so happy to know that blind people like me are exempt from mitzvot? Because even though I'm not obligated, I nonetheless do the mitzvahs, says Rav Yosef. However, but I heard that I was wrong in my assessment of the situation. Because Rabbi Chanina said, greater is the one who is commanded and does the commandments than is the one who is not commanded and does the commandments. That fulfilling one's obligations is more important and more impressive than discretionary actions. So now Rabbi Yosef says, whoever tells me the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Yehuda, I'll make a party for the rabbis. Because then I'll be getting more reward as a person who was obligated than a person who was not obligated. Pechet, 88. What happens if you injure someone else's Canaanite slave? Chayav Bakulan, you're obligated to pay all the components of the damages. Rabbi Yehuda Omer in Lavadin Boshes. However, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you don't pay all 5 components because there's no embarrassment payment and no embarrassment factor when you injure somebody else's Canaanite slave. Why does Rabbi Yehuda say what he says? Because it says in the Torah, Ish ve'achiv, that if man and his brother, his fellow brother, are fighting, then whatever happens, there'll be payment. Yatsa Evet shein lo achva. So the payment is only going to be for boshet, embarrassment, when there is brotherliness between the two people. But with an Evet, there is no achva. He's not your brother. As for the rabbis, they say, no, there is a boshet payment. Why? Because he's achiv b'mitzvot. That the Evet Kanani is your brother in his obligation to perform most of, although not all, mitzvot of the Torah. 89. Ezu totana ketuba. What is the meaning of the tovat hana'ah of a ketuba? A woman has a ketuba, a marriage contract, which promises her money in the event that the marriage comes to an end and she's still among the living. So if she is divorced, she gets paid. If she is widowed, she gets paid by the estate of the dead husband. Well, what is a tovat hana'ah? The value of this ketubah to someone other than her. It means how much would a person be willing to spend to own the rights of her ketubah right now on the prospect that he'll get paid, the buyer will get paid if she becomes widowed or divorced, but that he would get nothing if she predeceases her husband. So since it's a risky gamble, you might end up with zero. It's the tovas hana of the ketubah is not the same as the actual dollar value of the ketubah. Tzadi, 90. There was an incident involving a person who exposed the head of a woman in the shuk, in the public space. So he uncovered her hair, he embarrassed her in the public space, and Rabbi Akiva insisted that this bad fellow pay 400 zuz, 400 zuz, compensation for the embarrassment of this woman. So the man says, can I have some time to pay? 10 lizman, give me some time to pay, and I'll pay. So, all right, Rabbi Akiva gave him some time. What happened? This guy hatched a scheme whereby he was going to cause the woman to remove her head covering in public so that she could lap up some oil that spilled in the street. And then he would have witnesses to see that she had exposed her head willingly. So now he says to Rabbi Akiva, you want me to pay 400 zuz to a woman who willingly exposed her own head? And you want me to pay because I exposed her head? She should get nothing. So what does Rabbi Akiva respond? Amar lo amarta klum. You've said nothing. Just because she took an action later on of her own accord doesn't mean that you didn't do wrong and have embarrassed her in the episode where you were involved. So I find you 400 zuz, you got to pay the 400 zuz no matter what. 91. Tzadi Aleph. Chamisha dvarim, the 5 things, the 5 components of the nezek payment, so some of them we give right away, like nezek, tsar, and boshet. However, 2 things we have to delay the payment until we know what the amount will be. What are those? Ripui, the doctor bills, which cannot be determined right now, will only be known after it's over. And shevet, unemployment, because we don't know how long this person is going to be out of work. It could be a day, it could be much longer than that. As when we know, that's when the amount will be assessed. Tzadi bet 92. Afal pishunoten lo, even though you've paid back the money for the nezik when you injure someone, you're not forgiven in the eyes of God, in the religious sense, the spiritual sense, until you beg for mercy, if you request forgiveness from the person you harmed. And the quote, the pasuk that is used to prove the point is Hashem's words to Avimelech with regard to how Avimelech had to ask Avraham for forgiveness after having taken Sarah away from Abraham. And how do you know that if a person who was wronged and then forgiveness is requested from that person, that they should give the forgiveness, and if they don't, they're considered cruel, achzari? That Avraham prayed to God regarding the healing of Avimelech and his household, and it worked. So that's what you're supposed to do. However, if you forgiveness is requested from you, and you do not provide that forgiveness, you do not pray for the well-being of the other side, then you're considered a bad actor, an afsari, a bad guy, a cruel person. Sadi Gimel 93. Hamosir din al chavero. Let's say you were offended by someone, and you turn to God and say, I want that person to be judged. Hunenash techila. You, the person who turns to God, will be punished first. Shenemar, as it says, that Sarah said to Avram regarding her dissatisfaction with Hagar, my anger is enraged against you, Avraham. You shouldn't have behaved the way you did with vis-a-vis Hagar. But in the end, what happened? Avraham goes to bury and eulogize Sarah. She was punished first. She died first. Avraham died second. So the moral of the story is, you shouldn't be turning towards the heavens and saying, punish that guy, because it may work out not so well for you in the long run. Everyone have a great week.